Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Magic, Mystery, and Medicine. I'm your host, Megan Edge. I'm your host and I'm your healer. And today I'm going to be sharing with you how you can be in the forest and recognize what the healing medicine is of the trees and the plants. We're going to be focusing on fir sap. And I'm going to be sharing with you my method for extracting fir sap from live trees, not harming them. So thanks for being here, and I hope that you enjoy the show. I guess you can't call it a viewpoint if there isn't a view. So somebody's come along and topped these fir trees so that there's a view down over to the next ridge. But what happens when you cut into a conifer tree is, of course, the sap starts to flow. But firs are unique in that they produce little blisters on the surface of their bark, and they store the sap into the little blisters. So that's what we're collecting today, is the sap. It's very sticky, as you can see. We've got a little bit in the bottom here. And I'm going to show you the process for how I collect the sap, and then I'm going to teach you what to do with it afterwards. So come with me.
Although I refer to it as sap, technically it's called pitch.
First of all, we want to find a tree that's got lots of blisters on it, and I see one down there. You don't need much to collect the sap except for a stand of fir trees, of course, and then a little jar. And you can use a knife. I use a butter knife sometimes, or you can just push the glass up against the blister and it will pop into the jar. So this one here, look at all of these blisters. They're like little blister packs. And this is where the sap is stored. And traditionally, Indigenous people have tapped the sap of lots of different kinds of conifer trees for the medicine that's in the sap, the things that the sap can help with. So that's why I'm collecting it, because I love the idea of making my own medicine from nature. So I'm looking for a nice big blister. And then I'm just going to take my jar, push up gently. Sometimes it makes little popping noises, other times it just kind of flows in. In this blister, it's actually solid, the sap, so I'm just going to put the whole thing in there, and then when we melt it down at home, I'll just siphon off the blisters. Ah, there's that sound. Have you ever seen nature documentaries where they're milking snakes for their venom? It sort of feels like that. And I always want to be respectful of nature when I'm collecting medicine. So there's a couple of things that I do. Mentally ask the tree if it's okay, if I can have its medicine, and I wait to see if I get a yes or a no, and almost inevitably I'll get a yes. That's sort of some of the magic about it. And then I also want to make sure that I'm not taking too much from each tree, because the reason that the tree produces sap in the first place is for its own protection and its own health and vitality. There's one more nice big one up here that I'm going to get. So to the untrained eye, it can often look like when you see a forest that it's all just green and everything is the same. But I wanted to point out a couple of differences for you here, just so that it's easier to identify the trees that you're getting your sap from. So this little one here, this is one of our fir trees. It's got smooth bark, and as it gets a little bit older, it will have the blisters of sap on it. Right next to it, this is a yew tree, and you can see in comparison that they're quite different. The yew tree has a darker, compact, flatter needles, whereas the fir, the needles are growing all the way around the branch, and they're much, much bigger. And then on this side of me is a cedar tree. And the cedar has the flat needles, different color of green, more of like you would think of as a forest green. And then if you look over there, you can see the bark of the cedar is much more fibrous and up and down. And this is the bark that the Indigenous peoples, the First Nations peoples, used to make everything from clothing to hats to boxes. This was their sacred tree of life. Another method of extracting the sap from the mature fir trees is to look for places in the bark where the sap is starting to ooze out. And then as it comes out of the tree and rests on the surface, we can harvest it just by gently pulling it off the surface of the tree. The constituents in the sap are going to be similar from when the tree is little to when the tree is mature. And we know that some of those constituents include antimicrobial, antiviral. So basically what the sap is like a band-aid for the tree. When there's an injury to the tree or someplace where the bark has split or a branch has come off, the tree produces the sap as a way of healing itself. Some of the questions that I often get are around whether this is damaging the tree for me to be taking the sap from the tree. Certainly when the sap is like this and it's on the surface of the tree, not at all. With the little blister packs, yes, it does create a wound on the tree, but like with anything that you're foraging in the forest or on the beach or anywhere else, In nature, you only take what you need. So really the rule is to be very respectful of that whole process of foraging and of using the medicine and the food that we can get in the wild. So as I said before, it is very sticky, but it's really good for your skin. So if you're out in the forest and you get a cut or a scrape or anything like that, and you're in a fir forest, you just pop open one of those little blisters and put it on the skin where the cut is, and it will actually help it heal faster. You can also eat it. It's edible. Has like a resiny flavor, kind of lemony. And what also the indigenous peoples do in this area, in the springtime, if you look over at the trees right here, you can see the new growth. This is also edible, and it has a lemony flavor to it. And you would just take a little bit off the end, and you can eat it directly like that. Yeah, it tastes lemony. You can also take the needles and dry them and use them as a tea to help with congestion and colds and things like that. And there's lots of minerals in it too. So it was a tonic. It was used as a tonic in the springtime to bolster the immune system of the individual. It's so amazing, isn't it? Thank you everyone for joining me today on Magic, Mystery and Medicine. For more information on the work that I do and the courses that I teach, please visit my website at meganedge.ca. Everything you learned today is covered in The Confident Healer.